You are not allowed to impose, through the government, your religious beliefs on others. That is not what religious freedom is about. That's not what our country rests on.
Yeah.
And as a democracy, we respect other democracies' abilities to self-police and self-regulate. And so this process is underway. Our voices have been heard. Your voice is going to be heard. Obviously, there's international attention focused on this national citizenship registration.
Oh, you guys are going to love this. We have a double feature today. Representative Ilhan Omar tried to take control of the narrative in two separate hearings. One on religion in America and one on our foreign policy with India. In both cases, she tried to use loaded questions to push a radical viewpoint. And in both cases, the witnesses, cool, calm, and collected, brought the facts. Today, we're reacting to the schooling of Ilhan Omar. Let's dive in.
Under our Constitution, we are prohibited from establishing religion, yes?
Absolutely. Okay. That's what the establishment
says. If you have members of Congress that are legislating laws in accordance with their faith in regards to abortion or LGBTQ or women or any of those things, that should be prohibited within our Constitution.
You are not allowed to impose, through the government, your religious beliefs on others. That is not what religious freedom is about. That's not what our country rests on.
Yeah. For many of us, religious freedom is extremely important. It is life and death in this country. Yes. Many of us fled our countries to come to the United States because that is the one thing that distinguishes us from many countries. But it's also important that we have a secular government and protect people's civil rights and access to those civil rights. And so I appreciate your testimony.
Watch carefully how Representative Omar frames her question. She isn't just asking about the Constitution. She's trying to delegitimize any lawmaker who has personal faith. She basically asks, if you legislate based on your faith, shouldn't you be prohibited from doing that? That is a dangerous road to go down. Omar wanted the witness to say, yes, religious people shouldn't make laws. She was trying to conflate voting your conscience with establishing a state religion. But Miss Laser didn't take the bait. She clarified, you are not allowed to impose through the government your religious beliefs on others. Here is why that matters. In America, we don't ban people of faith from the public square. If your faith informs your view on the sanctity of life or traditional values, you have every right to vote that way. That isn't establishing a religion. That is participation. Omar seems to think a secular government means a government void of religious people. Extreme. The witness correctly reminded her.
Ambassador Wales, as you know, last month I let a letter to Ambassador Juster and Jones with you CC'd on it on the situation of Kashmir. Our partnership with India is strategic, but it's also based on our shared values of democracy, religious pluralism, and the respect of human rights. Under Modi and the BJP government, all of these mutual values have been threatened. And I think we have to understand the situation in Kashmir as part of an overall Hindu nationalism project of the BJP. So my first question to you is about the right of self-determination. Is the United States committed to emphasizing the centrality of Kashmir voices in determining the future of the Jammu and Kashmiri people?
I would disagree with the characterization that we don't have a values-based relationship with the government of Prime Minister Modi. And I would just underscore that Prime Minister Modi came in a consecutive term. He achieved a majority vote in a very diverse
we can agree to disagree on that. I just would like to understand if we are going to centralize the voices of the Kashmiri and...
But just to provide context, I mean, the actions he took were approved in Parliament, including by members of the opposition. The Supreme Court is reviewing that decision. The High Court is reviewing habeas corpus petitions. The institutions of India's democracy are working. We absolutely believe that Kashmiri's voice needs to be heard, that in any restoration, when there is restoration of a political of an assembly, when there are state assembly elections, that's the way for Kashmiris to be able to register their views, also in peaceful assembly. And so I think the concern over the restrictions on movement and what we've seen over the last 78 days is that ability to protest peacefully has been difficult for Kashmiris to exercise.
Yeah. I mean, and the part of the reason I asked and the part of the reason I emphasized the context of the larger PGP project is because I think in both cases, the impunity we have seen for crimes against Muslims under the PJP was warming for such worse things to come. In Assam, almost 2 million people are being asked to affirmably approve their citizenship. As my colleague and the chairman said, there have been official statements to the effect that no Buddhist, Christian, Sikh, or Jain refugees need to worry about their status. And so this is a clear anti-Muslim program. And I'm sure you've seen the same reports that the Indian government is starting to build camps in Assam, presumably to hold those who are unable to prove their citizenship. This is how the Rohingya genocide started. At what point do we no longer share values with India? Are we waiting for the Muslims in Assam to be put in those camps?
The certification of citizenship in Assam dates to a 2013 Supreme Court ruling that ordered the government to do so, to address questions of illegal immigration. The process, which continues to unfold and continues to be challenged in the court, it now has 1.9 million people who have not been certified, and that includes both Muslims and Hindus. There are 300 appeal panels that are being set up for those individuals to appeal this determination. And as my colleague stated, we're concerned that many of these individuals who may not have the wealth or the education to successfully be able to document their citizenship are vulnerable. We will continue to watch this very closely, but I would stress that the appeal process is still open. The judicial process is still working in India. And as a democracy, we respect other democracies' abilities to self-police and self-regulate. And so this process is underway. Our voices have been heard. Your voice is going to be heard. Obviously, there's international attention focused on this national citizenship registration.
Okay, wow. Let's just take a breath because that was a masterclass in diplomacy versus ideology. One, the narrative versus the reality. Did you hear how Omar framed that? She accused the world's largest democracy of essentially prepping for a genocide. She's trying to frame a key ally as a villain. Two, the fact check on the NRC. This was my favorite part. Omar tries to compare the National Register of Citizens NRC in Assam to the Rohingya crisis. That is a terrifying comparison, but Wells, she was ready. She dropped the context that was conveniently left out. The Supreme Court of India ordered this. This wasn't some political whim. It was a judicial process to deal with illegal immigration, something every sovereign nation has a right to manage. Did you catch that stat? 1. 9 million people were excluded, and Wells points out that it includes both Hindus and Muslims. That one fact completely deflates the religious targeting narrative. 3. The self-policing mic drop. And finally, that closing line, we respect other democracies' abilities to self-police. That is the doctrine right there. It's about sovereignty. Wells is saying, look, India has courts. They have an opposition party. They have a constitution. Let them handle their internal business. It's refreshing. Honestly, instead of lecturing a strategic partner, Wells treated them like an equal. 2 hearings, 2 witnesses, and 2 reality checks for Representative Omar. Let me know in the comments. Do you think faith has a place in politics? And was Alice Wells right to defend India's sovereignty? Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.